Hi everyone. I am early because there are so many people registered for this webinar. It is actually illegal record breaking, I think. So I thought I'd make sure you could funnel in, work out how to share my screen. And in the meantime, if you can let me know in the chat or the Q&A that you can hear me, that I'm coming in loud and clear, that would be amazing. Because otherwise I will just be sitting here talking to myself, and nobody wants that. It is a waste of all of your time if I'm doing that. So I'm going to wait until somebody says they can hear me. Oh, I see a little Q&A pop up. I can hear you. Yes, excellent. Thank you, Dale. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Fiona. I'll get started then, because this is well, now can you see my slides is the next thing. I have shared them. So if you can see them, I can start talking to them. That's the next stage. Q&A. I can see them. Dale, you are the star performer today. That's fabulous. I can confidently get started on this very hot topic for our audience, which is privacy, consent, and the compliant practice. What the Privacy Act reforms mean for your clinic right now. I do always like to start with an acknowledgement of country. And this one's from my children's school, and it's my favourite one ever. But I'm yet to 100% memorise it myself. So we play, we dance, we laugh, we cry. On this earth, under our feet and under the sky, this is the place, the Ghana people's land, where we live and we breathe and we walk hand in hand. Thank you, we say, for sharing with us the land you're connected to and the land we all love. So I want to extend my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. And look, if you're up for it, I'd love to hear which lands you're in. I'm here in Adelaide. We act for clients all around Australia. So I know there'll be lots of different traditional lands that you are coming in from today. Feel free to share that in the chat. And I'll get to my next point, which is a disclaimer, which is this presentation is for general guidance only. I'm a lawyer. People are always disappointed if I don't do this, so I feel like I have to. Legal advice should be taken in relation to taking actions on specific issues for your private practice. It's not, what I share today isn't going to apply to everyone. Everybody has their own specific circumstances. So who am I? My name's Sarah Bartholomews. I've just realised I usually show my book, which is called Growing a Medical Practice, and it's on my bookshelf, so I'm going to get it for you. It's a book I've written. So part of what I do is I am an author, and I like to try and democratize the law for people for a good price. It's $25 if you buy it from our website, including postage, which is amazing. And I've just sent my next book, which is called Leading in Health, back to the publisher to say, ready to go. So then he said, I've got to work out what I'm going to say on the back. So that one, we're looking at bringing that out in September, so not too far away. I run a private legal practice that focuses on health professionals, and what we like to do is protect health professionals' businesses and also create value in them. And so that's a big part of what we do, making your private practice more valuable. I come from a family of medical practitioners and health providers, psychs, doctors, surgeons, dentists, nurses, a whole gambit, physios. So it's really a cohort that I care very deeply about and want to protect. And it also is a cohort that we know is doing amazing things for the Australian people, and we want to help protect all Australians through making sure your businesses are legally compliant and ready to for succession in the future as well, of course, so that you can keep making the impact you want to in the world. All right, enough from me. Who's this webinar for? It's for you if you're not sure whether your consent process is compliant. You might be relying on outdated privacy policies or website terms without realising it. You want confidence that your approach to privacy, AHPRA and TGA requirements are aligned with the current expectations of the law, and you also want to reduce risk and strengthen how your clinic operates to build the value of your practice. So it's really designed for anyone responsible for how a healthcare practice operates. Whether you own a single practitioner clinic or oversee multiple locations, privacy, consent, and patient communications now affect almost every part of your business. As clinics adopt online booking systems, telehealth, AI tools, digital marketing, and cloud-based software, the legal framework has become significantly more complex. You don't need to have experienced a complaint or a data breach for this webinar to be relevant. In fact, the best time to review your systems is before something goes wrong, and it's really something we're very passionate about here at uLegal, making sure that people are compliant so that if something does go wrong, they know what to do. Today's session is particularly valuable for you if you've introduced new technology, updated your services, expanded your team, or simply haven't considered reviewing your privacy and consent framework for several years. What you're going to leave the session with is a clear understanding of how the recent changes to the Privacy Act, together with AHPRA and TGA requirements, affect the way your clinic operates on a day-to-day basis. This is going to help you identify where gaps commonly arise between policies, consent processes, and what actually happens in practice, and discuss some practical ways to align your systems, documentation, and patient communications. My aim, as always, is to show you what a compliant, well-structured practice looks like. Strong privacy and consent frameworks do more than reduce legal risk. They create consistency across the practice, strengthen patient trust, and support sustainable growth as your clinic evolves. So on that, we often look at a medical practice or health practice at uLegal through this life cycle stages. We call them start, scale, strengthen, and sell. And this topic fits firmly within the strengthen stage. By the time a clinic's operating with multiple practitioners and software platforms, online bookings, digital forms, marketing campaigns, third-party providers, the issue is no longer whether a practice has a privacy policy or consent form. The issue is whether those documents accurately reflect the way the practice operates. Strengthening is about ensuring your legal framework keeps up with the operational reality of the clinic. In this webinar, we will move through 3 practical pillars, which you can see on this slide: systems, standards, and security. These pillars are designed to make the topic manageable. Systems means understanding how information moves through your practice. Standards means ensuring consent, advertising, and patient communications meet the current expectations. Security means having internal processes, staff responsibilities, and escalation pathways that support compliance. The aim isn't to turn practice owners into privacy lawyers. The aim is to help you identify where your current framework may be outdated, inconsistent, or exposed. So, strong systems. Systems is how patient information moves through the clinic, as I said. Standards, consent, advertising, and patient communications. And security, internal controls, breach readiness, and governance. Practical actions to align your documents with day-to-day operations. These are the 3 pillars I'm going to talk about more deeply today. But first, why now? Well, most healthcare practices assume they're compliant until something tests the system. That test may be a patient complaint, a data breach, an AHPRA advertising issue, a staff mistake, a website review, or a buyer's due diligence question. At that point, the problem's usually not just the wording of the privacy policy. It's the gap between what the document says and what actually happens. For example, the policy might say access is restricted, but the clinic may use shared logins. The policy may say patient data is stored securely, but staff may be emailing information to personal accounts. Those operational gaps are what we want to focus on today. We're going to start with systems. This is the foundation of privacy compliance because you can't properly document or protect information if you don't understand how it's collected, stored, accessed, used, and disclosed. Our modern clinic is not just a reception desk and a filing cabinet. It's a network of software, people, processes, and third-party providers. The first step is to map that network. The Privacy Act, which is from 1988, I think we'll all agree there's been some significant changes since then. And so the reforms have updated to really reflect the updated expectations in privacy. But this act does apply to also health service providers that handle health information. And that includes small businesses that might otherwise assume they fall outside of the regulation, because if you didn't deal with sensitive personal information, you would fall outside this regime, but you do, so you're caught. The 2024 reforms strengthen the privacy network, including new enforcement mechanisms and clearer expectations around how personal information is protected. The new statutory tort for serious invasions of privacy also commenced on the 10th of June 2025, getting individuals a further avenue to seek redress for serious privacy harms. For clinics, the practical takeaway is that privacy compliance needs to be current, operational, and demonstrable. The 2024 reforms clarified that reasonable steps to protect personal information include technical and organisational measures. In a practice setting, this means privacy is not only an IT issue. Technical measures might include secure logins, role-based access, multi-factor authentication, secure backups and audit logs, organisational measures, including staff training, confidentiality obligations, and internal processes, escalation points, and clear responsibility for privacy decisions. A clinic should also understand how third-party providers handle patient information, especially where systems involve online bookings, patient management software, telehealth, SMS reminders, marketing platforms, or offshore support. A practical privacy review should follow the patient information. Where does patient information enter the practice? Who sees it? Which systems hold it? Why is it used? When is it disclosed? How is it stored? How is it archived or deleted? Many privacy policies fail because they are drafted from a generic template rather than the actual data journey of the clinic. For example, a clinic may have added online bookings, SMS reminders, telehealth, AI scribes, or new payment gateways since the last privacy review. Each of those changes can affect how information is handled, and the privacy policy should reflect that reality. And I'm smiling because I deal with a lot of health professionals because I'm getting older, and I find all of these things are being implemented, and it makes the clinic owner's life so much easier and the practitioners that work there so much easier. But really, I'm seeing all of these things be adopted en masse, and I'm sure that many clinic owners don't realize that the privacy policy or consent might need updating. All right, there's a lot to get through, so I'm just going to keep moving. And I'll take questions at the end, but since we've only got 30 minutes, I'm going to make the most of our time together. One of the most common issues we see is a privacy policy that looks acceptable on the surface, but no longer describes how the clinic operates. That can happen very, very easily. A clinic introduces a new booking platform. A practitioner starts using an AI scribe. A marketing agency adds tracking tools to the website. Reception starts using automated SMS reminders. The privacy policy remains unchanged. The result is a document that may not be deliberately misleading, but is no longer accurate. That matters because patients, regulators, and potential buyers will look for consistency between the clinic's promises and the actual systems. A medical practice or health practice website is no longer just an online brochure. It may allow patients to submit detailed inquiries, book appointments, pay deposits, complete intake forms, read health content, and interact with automated tools. That makes the website part of the clinic's compliance environment. A clinic should not treat digital tools as separate from privacy and consent. If a website form invites patients to describe symptoms, that may involve health information. If a booking platform stores patient data, the practice should understand where it's stored and what the provider can do with it. If AI tools are used, the clinic should understand whether patient information is processed, retained, or used to train models. The second pillar is standards. This is where privacy connects with consent, AHPRA advertising, TGA rules, and website communications. The key theme is consistency. Patients should receive the same message from the website, the consent form, the practitioner, the front desk, and the internal process. When those touch points say different things, then risk increases. This consent is often treated as something that happens once, usually when a patient signs an intake form. So if it only happens once, that will be when it happens. The approach is too narrow for many modern clinics. Consent needs to reflect the service being provided, the information being collected, and how that information will be used, and any material change in care or data handling. A consent process should also be explained in a way that the patient can understand. The record should show what the patient agreed to and when. A signed form is useful evidence, but it's not suitable for a clear, consistent, documented process. Consent gaps often arise because the clinic has changed. The form may have been appropriate when it was first prepared, but the practice may now offer new services, new technology, new communication channels, or new practitioner arrangements. For example, a clinic may use clinical photography, telehealth, AI transcription, shared care arrangements, external laboratories, marketing emails, or higher risk services. Each may require specific patient communication and, in some cases, specific consent. A practical review should ask whether the consent framework still matches the services actually provided. AI, telehealth, and automation can improve clinic operations, but they also create privacy and consent questions. If an AI scribe is used during consultations, patients should understand what's being used, whether their information is recorded, and where it's processed, and whether they can decline. Telehealth requires consideration of identity, suitability, privacy of the environment, and record keeping. Automated reminders and marketing communications also need to align with the practice's privacy obligations. The practical discipline is simple. Before introducing a new system, check whether the privacy policy, consent forms, and staff scripts need updating. AHPRA advertising compliance is highly relevant to clinic websites and social media. Advertising for regulated health services must not be false, misleading, or deceptive. It must not use testimonials or purported testimonials. It must not create unreasonable expectations of beneficial treatment, and it must not encourage indiscriminate or unnecessary use of regulated health services. This does not mean clinics can't market themselves. Clinics can educate patients and explain services. The key is to use accurate, balanced, and evidence-based language that does not overstate outcomes or minimize risk. AHPRA's 2025 guidance for higher risk non-surgical cosmetic procedures reflects the regulator's focus on responsible advertising in high-risk areas. While those guidelines apply to particular cosmetic procedures, the broader lesson is relevant for all clinics. Regulators are increasingly interested in how services are presented online. Content should not glamorize procedures, imply guaranteed results, minimize complexity, or exploit patient insecurities. Before and after images patient stories, influencer style content, and claims about transformation can be particularly risky. And we know from our practice that AHPRA has their eye on those. Practices offering cosmetic, skin, weight management, or injectable services should be especially careful. And I should also say dentists who offer those services, cosmetic services, also need to be careful because we've seen AHPRA be particularly interested in those services. The TGA framework is particularly important where clinics provide services involving therapeutic goods such as prescription medicines, injectables, medicinal cannabis, weight management products, medical devices, or other regulated goods. Prescription-only medicines generally cannot be advertised to the public. Risk can also arise indirectly, where advertising does not name the medicine, but points patients towards a particular therapeutic good or treatment pathway. Clinics should be careful with website pages, social posts, Google Ads, and external marketing campaigns. A marketing agency may understand conversion, but not necessarily AHPRA or TGA restrictions. So make sure that's something that your agency is across. Many clinics review these documents, being privacy policies and website terms and conditions, in isolation. The privacy policy might be updated by one provider, the website terms copied from a template, consent forms prepared by practitioners, and social media managed externally. This creates risk because each document plays a different role. The privacy policy explains how information is handled. Website terms govern how website content is used and relied upon. Consent forms record agreement to specific services and information handling. Internal policies tell staff what to do. These documents should be reviewed together so that they are reliable and tell the same story as each other. Social media can be useful for education and brand building, but for healthcare practices, it's not ordinary marketing. Professional obligations apply online, including privacy, confidentiality, respectful communication, and advertising compliance. A practice remains responsible for content published under its name, even when third-party agencies are preparing or posting it. Patient reviews, outcome-based stories, before and after images, time-limited promotions, and therapeutic good references can create compliance issues quite quickly. Practices should have approval workflows, content checklists, and processes for handling patient comments before content goes live. The third pillar is security. This is not limited to cybersecurity, although cybersecurity is important. In this context, security means practices' broader ability to demonstrate that information is protected, responsibilities are clear, incidents are managed, and staff know what to do. This is where written documents meet daily behaviour. The documents must reflect your internal processes. A privacy policy, consent form, or website terms document is only useful if it reflects the actual operations of the clinic. Regulators, accreditation bodies, insurers, or buyers may look at the documents to staff behaviour, systems, permissions, training records, incident response steps, email practices, and complaint handling. This is where many clinics are exposed. The policy says one thing, but the operational reality says another. The aim is not perfection. The aim is consistency, accountability, and evidence that the practice takes reasonable steps in a practical way. Healthcare practices handle sensitive information, which means a data breach can be particularly serious. A breach response plan should identify who is responsible for containing the issue, assessing the risk, deciding whether notification is required, communicating with affected individuals and reviewing what happened. Staff should know who to tell and what not to do. For example, they should not delete evidence, delay escalation, or attempt informal fixes without guidance. Supplier contacts and software support details should be accessible before an incident occurs. A good plan also includes a post-incident review, so the practice improves its system. If there is a data breach, actually, one thing is that engaging a lawyer can mean that all your communications and working through the data notifiable data breach process that I hope you have in place means that your communications are covered by legal professional privilege and can't be disclosed. And this can be particularly helpful if you have an insurance policy that you want to claim on as well. So file save as that in your brain, and I will keep moving. One of the most practical improvements a clinic can make is to assign ownership. Who reviews the privacy updates? Who approves the website changes? Who checks advertising compliance? Who updates consent forms when services change? Who trains new staff? Without clear responsibility, compliance becomes reactive. A practice should use simple checklists before launching into new platforms, services, or marketing campaigns. It should keep version control for policies and forms. It should also schedule periodic reviews so issues are identified before a complaint, breach, regulator inquiry, or sale process forces the question. Privacy and consent are also relevant to practice value. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is something I'm particularly interested at U Legal with us helping practice owners build. In a due diligence process, a buyer might ask for privacy policies, consent forms, website terms, breach history, complaints, software contracts, practitioner arrangements, and marketing practices. If those documents are outdated or inconsistent, the buyer may see operational risk, regulatory exposure, or future remediation costs. Strong systems can reduce friction in a transaction because they show the practice is mature and well managed. Even if a sale isn't currently planned, strengthening privacy, consent, and advertising frameworks supports sustainable growth. If you only take one practical step from this session, start by comparing your documents against what actually happens. Map the patient information journey. Look at your website forms, booking system, patient management software, reminder tools, telehealth platform, payment gateway, and marketing systems. Then review whether your privacy policy, website terms, consent forms, and internal processes reflect that actual journey. Next, check your website and social media content for advertising risks, especially testimonials, outcome claims, therapeutic goods references, and high pressure promotions. Finally, confirm staff know what to say and who to notify when privacy or consent questions arise. For clinics that want support, the work usually starts with alignment. We look at the practice's actual operations and then review whether the documents support those operations. That may include updating the privacy policy, preparing website terms and conditions, reviewing consent forms, checking AHPRA and TGA advertising issues, and helping clarify internal processes. The goal is not to produce documents for the sake of having more documents. I know in my own business, I don't want more documents. The goal is to create a framework that is accurate, practical, defensible, and aligned with how the practice operates day to day. I wanted to explain how we've helped somebody who had an issue with this, so how we can help. This is an example, and this matter really demonstrates how quickly a practice's existing privacy framework can become outdated when new technology is introduced. A long-standing client of ours operating a psychology practice contacted us after integrating an AI tool into their operations. The client recognised that their existing client details form and privacy policy had been prepared before the technology was introduced and may no longer accurately reflect how patient information was being used and handled. The issue wasn't simply whether the AI tool itself had a privacy policy. The practice also needed to consider what information was being entered into the system, how patients were being informed, whether appropriate consent had been obtained, and whether staff had clear guidance around the tools that could be used. This is a common example of the gap between documentation and operational reality. A practice may introduce a useful new system, but unless its privacy, consent, and governance documents evolve at the same time, it can create unnecessary risk. So, what was our approach? Well, after reviewing the existing documents, we provided the client with a clear proposal outlining our recommended scope of work. The client details form and privacy policies were updated to explain how personal information may be collected, used, and processed through the AI tool. The documents also included an appropriate reference to the AI provider's own privacy policy, helping patients understand that a third-party platform was involved. We also recommended reviewing the broader consent framework being developed in an internal AI policy. This was important because the technology alone is rarely the only source of risk. Human error remains one of the most significant causes of privacy and data security incidents. Staff need practical guidance about what information can be entered into AI tools, which systems are approved, and how outputs should be checked, and what should occur if something goes wrong. So really, this is like a training issue. And I've just noticed it's 1:30 or on the hour, depending on where you are. I've just got a couple more slides. So stay tuned if you can. Otherwise, there will be a recording. So the updated documents that we delivered were within a short time frame which the client needed. The client confirmed that they addressed all of the practices concerned and didn't require any amendments. The broader lesson is that adopting AI doesn't necessarily require practices to avoid innovation. We don't want you to shy away from new advances in technology. It requires you to ensure that your privacy documents, consent processes, and staff guidance and training and operational systems evolve alongside the technology that you adopt. So to close, there's 5 main takeaways. First, privacy compliance needs to reflect how your clinic actually operates. Second, consent should be viewed as a process that evolves with services, technology, and patient care. Third, websites and social media are regulated environments for medical and allied health practices. Fourth, AHPRA and TGA requirements should not be considered before, or should always be considered, I should say, before content goes live. And that's critical, not after a complaint arises. Finally, strengthening your systems, standards, and security now helps reduce risk, improve consistency, and support the long-term value of your practice. If you've got questions, this is the way to contact us. How we work with practices is through aligning, protecting, and amplifying. We really want to help you build a stronger, more valuable practice. We have a Facebook group which you can join. Make sure you answer the questions, or else you will be asked in a private message to answer the questions. And then finally, we've written an article on this subject. So if I move through that so very quickly, feel free to have a look at the article, which covers everything that I've covered today. If you learn through reading as well as through listening, and then you can arrange a complimentary, no obligation call back with our team to talk about your specific situation. So have a go at using these QR codes, which we've developed especially for this webinar. So I'm going to see if there's any questions now. Look, only 2.5 minutes over time. I'll stop sharing my slides. I can work out how to do that. And have a look at your questions and maybe where you're coming in from today. Dale is coming in from Kwandamuka, which is a very cool word I haven't said before. You're lucky that you get to say that all the time. And no questions have popped up. So I think that's a good sign. I'm hoping that means that people will come in independently and ask us questions in private, which is what we find often people don't want to ask out loud in front of other people, but they want to ask us one-to-one, which we absolutely have time for. Louise, your hand is up. I think that was just because you were putting your hand up to say you could hear me. But if you do want to reach out separately, please feel free to do that. I'll end the webinar now and look forward to being in touch with people in due course. Oh, the owner's asked if you can get a copy of the slides. You absolutely can. We will send them out in PDF along with the copy of the recording, which you're very welcome to come back to. Lisa has asked for the Facebook page again. It is You Legal for Doctors. So if you search that, you should be able to find that. And Nadine's coming in from Watharon, which is also a cool word that you get to say all the time. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in today. As always, it's lovely to be with you. And I look forward to connecting with people online or through other means. I hope you've all got value from coming today. Thanks again.